got straight when it came, when it came to the political influences of that region, and so when we look at Muhammad on the other side, we find that in Mecca they had so many gods and they had so many different forms of religion there, and when Muhammad went in, he went in as a monotheistic, and we find that they were quite impressed with him because he spoke about one religion, one God, and they were looking for something, but where Jesus was, they weren't looking for anything because they were quite content with what they are, and they had everything in control. Break that system, in order to set the people free and bring them into the kingdom of God.
Just to add to what Pastor Jonathan just said, when you also continue on the Muhammad side, you would see that you'd find the religion of Zoroastrianism, and it was exactly what it was like, in Jesus' time, as Pastor Jonathan explained. And so, because there wasn't a structure, it wasn't people were searching. When Islam was taken in, they embraced it very quickly. There wasn't a fight. There wasn't, a resistance. So here again, this allowed the environment to grow Islam because people were searching for something more stable, and as Pastor Donovan said, the way it was all sold. And we find the most important thing is that with the religion of Islam, it's very force and fear, and then with Jesus, it was just love and free will. You have a choice to come to me.
And even after Jesus, ascended, and we find that the disciples were left on their own, and when the apostolic movement came about, it became more intense, politically, and all the main aim was to destroy the uprising of the church, and they would they would crucify them, they would stone them, they persecuted them, in every direction that these guys went. They were under heavy persecution because they knew what Jesus actually laid a platform for, and that's one of the reasons why we find that that when Jesus walked in, he was prepared to die because he knew what the system was bringing to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add to that, if you remember, guys, in New Testament survey, when we spoke about why Christianity was able to spread at the rate that it could spread, was because of exactly what Pastor Donovan was saying, is that there was different religions coming in there. They were trying to control the crowds. So they knew that the religious Jewish leaders could control the Jewish people through their religion, and they allowed them a Jewish religion. And Christianity was a Jewish religion. And that is how we managed to spread as far as we did, because the Romans had already built the roads there. The travel and economic systems were already set in place. The different people were already speaking different languages. It was just easier for Christians to spread the gospel because it was deemed a Jewish religion. And so all the roads that was open to Judaism became a road that Christianity could go through. And if you remember clearly, we spoke about that in New Testament survey. You would have done that in your first year, where we said, when we were discussing why Christianity was able to spread as fast as it did, it was because of this exact same thing, is that the Romans were there and they were part of the advanced civilizations of their day. And so Christianity was a legal religion because it was deemed a Jewish religion. And because it was legal, it was able to move freely across the Roman Empire. So keep that in mind, just to add to what you guys were just saying, just to take it another step further and just to link it with everything else that you have, so you have a broader understanding. That's how Christianity was able to spread the way it did, right? And that's also how Paul was able to use social hubs to be able to meet in these places. And he was also a Roman citizen, so he was able to use these structures, and it made Christianity safe to be able to spread, right? Okay, if there's anybody else, or can I move on? Question 2. Right. What discuss the phenomena surrounding the coming of revelation to Muhammad? That's the right word there, phenomena. In what ways is this the same or different for the prophets of the Bible as they receive revelation? So, the phenomena surrounding the coming of revelation to Muhammad, let's just discuss that. How did he receive his revelation?
The angel Gabriel.
The jinn.
Supposedly Gabriel.
Okay, so
I
Muhammad
never
got.
believed Gabriel visited that man.
I think he did.
Yeah.
I think Gabriel was trying to whoop him, but then he misconstrued that what was happening. Muhammad. Okay.
I don't know whether it was Josh. I think it was Josh in this particular one, or it was David, who said that Satan would take on the image of somebody that's really good looking, that can actually deceive you into believing that you are angelic being looks wise. Did you hear it in the lecture?
No, maybe I missed that part. But what I did remember, come to think of it, is Muhammad wasn't sure what happened. He knew he was being
Yeah.
antagonized by demons, but then his wife had this whole thing that she did in order uh, to. It was like her test. Like, is this from God or is this from the devil? And so she made him walk around and say, "Do you still see the angel? Yes, yes, yes." And then she took off her clothes and still asked him the question. Then he said no, and then that's how it was God. I mean, like. So
So that's how Islam was born under a naked woman.
the reason he couldn't see the angel anymore is because he was looking at a naked woman.
He's a fool, that guy.
He wasn't very happy with what he was seeing, because he never wanted to see that old age again.
He was highly distracted.
That's why he wanted to commit suicide.
I'm not putting this lecture up anyway. Rajesh, you very quiet. Anything to add?
No, I'm just wondering now. Do the Muslims know all this? Because if your religion is based on like this, come on, man. I don't think so. I think these things are not told to them, or
It's not.
Or it's purposely, kept away from.
That's why it's a way.
That's why you're only allowed to read the scriptures in Arabic, because no one understands it.
Yeah, you see, Muslims don't go down, apologetics and narratives and things like that. It's just the Quran, and they just keep reciting and reciting and reciting, but they don't even know what they're saying half the time.
Yeah, all the time.
I think he also said he gave an explanation of the way the Quran is learned, and that when he was learning it in university, he also believed what they were teaching, that Muhammad was this really good guy. He was a really good character.
No, what he said was that wasn't from the Quran. He was listening to Mawadi speak about the Prophet. It wasn't from the Quran.
No. So together with not understanding what it is about, and somebody teaching to you in a way that you take it in as though it is so good, that's Rajesh's answer.
Yeah, they didn't do background checks. That's a problem with them.
Now, any scholar or something of any religion, that's a lot. That's one thing you can do. Like, we go and we study on Jesus and the prophets and stuff like that. And don't they do these things?
No, they don't.
They're not allowed to question it.
Not allowed to question.
But
so it actually goes against their religion if they're going to question something.
Yeah, and it's even worse because they're not supposed to believe anything that Christians say. So if this comes from a Christian, automatically they're not listening to you, because they have been indoctrinated to say no, you got to kill them. because they're going to give you the truth.
The Bible is corrupt. The Bible is corrupt. So you don't go to a corrupt text. But even though it tells you you should go to the people of the book. So
Yeah, it's sadly, Rajesh, you, from my experience, when I spoke to Muslims, whatever we are talking about, they didn't know. They didn't know.
Okay.
And when they found out, they said it was a lie. And they don't know. They don't know. Sadly, they don't know, because there's a lot of good people out there. They're really good people, especially the ones in South Africa. But they don't know. They really don't know. That's the sad part. It's like intelligent people can be this blind. Anything else? So the phenomena surrounding the coming of revelation to Muhammad, right? So he was spoken to by Gabriel, a demonic spirit, a jinn. Actually, we don't even know if he was having hallucinations from all the drugs that he had been smoking. But anyways, no one knows who spoke to him. And we also don't know if his wife concocted this idea. But anyways, so that's the revelation that we have with Muhammad. In what ways is this the same or different for prophets of the Bible as they receive revelation? So let's choose a prophet from the Bible. Who do you have? Who did you select? Who do you want to use it as an example? Rajesh?
We look at Isaiah.
Isaiah? Yeah.
Visions.
yeah, the visions. He spoke directly to God.
Yeah.
Okay. God spoke directly to him.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was no.
Okay. Let's get another prophet. Who else do you have? Elijah?
Yeah.
Spoke. Jeremiah. How did he receive revelations?
God ministered to him directly.
So there was no angels that gave these guys revelations. There was no jinn. There was no demons. There was no confusion as to where the message came from. When
angels normally would have used to come and comfort them, like in Isaiah.
Yeah.
Elijah. So.
Right. So even with Samuel, I mean, so one thing we can conclude. In what ways is this the same or different for the prophets of the Bible as they received revelation? It was far different. They got their message directly from God Himself. They saw visions. There was no confusion from where the message came. They knew exactly who the speaker was, and they relayed it exactly like that. They didn't go via their wife or via so and so. It was God to the message going out. There was no mediator with the prophet. What else is different or similar?
And most of their prophetic word has come to pass.
Yes.
We see evidence of those words coming to pass.
Prophecy was fulfilled in their lifetime.
Yeah.
What about there was no personal gain? What about there was no personal gain in any of their prophecies?
And they also performed miracles, signs, and wonders.
No personal gain. They also worked in miracle signs and wonders. Okay, I'm just writing that down. Sorry, Pauline, you were trying to say something?
Yeah. According to Muhammad, he knew that it was a satanic spirit. Because he said it. Get away from me.
Yeah, I think if Satan visits you, you'll know, you know.
You feel very uneasy.
Yeah, he knew that spirit wasn't that Holy Spirit. He knew it.
Because he said the angel pressed him on the side, almost breaking his ribs.
Exactly.
No angel would come and hurt you that way.
Although I feel some of them should be able to do that to some of the false prophets.
I think only Jacob got it from the angel.
Let's see. So no personal gain. They all were able to work miracles and wonders. What about the prophets were? How can I put it? They had a fearfulness towards God. Like they wouldn't do something to jeopardize their relationship. They were, and a lot of them were not living uh, luxurious lifestyles. They were very
They were
humble.
chapters.
Yeah, they were very humble people, and certainly
Also,
they weren't warmongers.
yeah. And they were not, and the way they died.
Mm-hmm. Example, who are you talking about?
They died for the cause of God himself.
Okay.
They died through persecution. They were persecuted for the truth.
Also, with the prophets, they okay, no, that wouldn't apply. But what are they saying? Old Testament prophets in the Bible. No. Okay. Anything else, Rajesh, Pastor Donovan, Pauline? Any last points on that?
The prophet's death versus Muhammad's death.
Yes. Okay. In what ways is this the same or different for prophets of the Bible as they receive revelation? So we see that there was no similarities with the way Muhammad received his revelation to the way the prophets in the Bible received revelation. Actually, it was the total opposite. The way Muhammad received his revelation was the way false prophets received their revelation, as opposed to prophets in the Bible, the criteria that the church uses to confirm a person that's a prophet or not. So, yeah. Let's go on to question 3. So, everyone's happy with question 2, that it is completely different.
Yes.
There's no similarities.
No.
Okay. So a Muslim polemic is that the God of the Old Testament is violent. He told the Jews to kill the Canaanites before entering the land. How would you address this? So remember when in the first lecture we discussed apologetics and polemics, right? So apologetics is you defending the faith. Polemic is their argument for the position they stand with. Your greatest argument against the apologetic, right? So just remember, so a Muslim polemic is that the God of the Old Testament is violent. He told the Jews to kill the Canaanites before entering the land. How would you address this? So you've got a Muslim person there. Listen, don't tell us that Islam is a violent religion. Go and look at your Old Testament. Your God is telling his people to go and kill the Canaanites and take their land. So what do you call that? Is that not a violent God? Is that not a violent religion? How would you address that?
Okay, let me just read what I got here. Wars in the Old Testament were not intended to kill innocent people or what I got here, or loot and raid people's camps or cities. It was about God's promise of the promised land to his people. They had to conquer any ungodly nations that stood in their way. It was about God's judgment here on earth and false religions and on those who broke the laws and principles of God. God was a loving and patient God, but he could not tolerate the sins of the pagan nations. He also had to do everything he could to keep his promises to his people and to build a strong nation that fears him and honors him and worships him and prepare a way for the coming of his son.
Okay, can I respond to you on that one? Okay, no, carry on. Let's move on. Rajesh.
Okay, this is what let me put here. The Canaanites were in the land that was promised to the people of God, and whatever God does, it's not something that is not in the plan. And the Canaanites were actually going against what God had in plan, and also God was showing them that they weren't being obedient to His plan, and they didn't fall in the plan of God, and this is why.
Okay.
It was an example to the rest of the nations as well to fall in the plan of God.
Okay. Thanks, Rajesh. Pauline?
I just thought God had to get rid of nations that were ungodly in order to keep his nation together. God knows the pagan nations would come in and they would overturn the nation of truth, and they would put his people against him. And so God had to get rid of those nations in order for his work to be done, his will to be done. I said also, God can only get rid of the weeds because he wants a good fruit to mature. And so the bad fruit and the weeds needs to be taken out. And basically that's what it was.
So if the Muslim person says to you, well, our God told us that we should come into the land and also get rid of the bad weeds and kill non Muslims because he had given us a promise that we would take the land and that we will rule over the non believers. What are you going to say?
Well, I would say to him that.
Well, you, Pastor Donovan, and Rajesh all say the same thing, so I'm asking all of you.
No, it's correct. Yeah, I was just going to say that as well. If they turn around and say they've got the same argument on their side, how do we counteract that?
Yeah. So that's their polemic. You talking about promises from your God. There's no reason why they can't talk about promises from their God. So how would you address that?
As they say, Allah knows best. We say God knows best.
Yeah, and that makes for not an argument at all. That just becomes emotional, right? So there's no facts that's coming through. So we need to be able to give intelligent arguments back to these guys because some of them are really learned, and they use reason and logic with wrong data to win an argument against us. So the first thing that I would probably ask them is where in the Old Testament do you see that our God claims to be a God of peace? And where in the Old Testament is that? You as Christians, do you know that? You just take it for granted that because they said our God is a God of peace, that they are claiming that we believe our God is a God of peace. And they base their argument or their polemic on the fact that they would get us to say, hey, you're talking about this God of peace, but he sent people out to kill in the Old Testament. So the first question is, where did you establish that the Old Testament, the God of the Old Testament was actually a God of peace? I would think that would be the first question. The second question would be, when you look at the culture in the Old Testament, in order to rule and reign, you have to go to war with the next town or next city, and that's how empires was established. And in order to establish an empire, you need to take over the land. I don't have land. What am I going to do? I'm going to go to war with you. And if you lose the war, I'm going to plunder your possessions. I'm going to kill the men. I'm going to take the women and children and all your cattle, and we're going to merge it into our tribe. We're going to become stronger. We're going to marry your woman. We're going to have more children, and we're going to go for the next town. That's how people grew in the Old Testament. This is not out of the ordinary. At no point did God say, don't go and kill. He actually did say, go and kill. Do you understand where we're going with this?
I think it was for survival, and
no, nothing was for survival. No. And also remember, Pastor Donovan, with your response to the polemic, you said that you wouldn't deliberately go kill women and children. According to the Old Testament, you had to kill the women and children if God said that you had to do that. Actually, where he said you go there and you kill everything, there must be not even an altar, nothing must remain. That meant that you were killing innocent women and children. That is the called. That is the people that got anointed to do that. So at which point do you believe that the God in the Old Testament was non-violent as a Christian? So you gotta know the scriptures. You gotta know the context of the chapter, the context of the book, and the culture and environment and the times, the political situation at the times, and what was happening. Because they can very easily look at this. Everybody here would have lost the argument. And you must also understand that the way people interpret a good God and the way God is God and the way he rules and reigns, it has a lot to do with your understanding of who God is. Because the church has led the people to believe that the God of the Old Testament is a different God to the God of the New Testament. But the truth of the matter is, the God of the Old Testament is the same God in the New Testament. We discussed this in the degree program, that he was against children, babies being killed in the Old Testament. He's against babies being killed in the New Testament. He was against fornication in the Old. He's against fornication in the New. He was against homosexuality in the Old. He's against homosexuality in the New. So at which point do you see that the God in the New Testament has become more tolerant of sin? He's not. He's the same, right? And right now in Israel, if the time comes where they attack Israel, what is Israel going to do? Israel is going to kill innocent children and women. So you have to stand back and not be emotional about it. And you got to just deal with the truth. You don't need to defend God. God is God. He doesn't need our defense. You just need a good argument. Because the person that's going to ask you this question, already the reason they're asking you this question in this way is because they already got their polemic set up. They know how they're going to catch you, like the way I just caught you now. So they already got an argument set up. That's why they asked it like this. So you need to turn it on them. You need to flip it and say, at which point where did you get this, that the God of the Old Testament is a non-violent God? I didn't say that. Prove it to me. And then you flip it onto them, because they are setting themselves up to win the argument. You are going along with their premise. Their premise is wrong. So your premise that you're going to try and establish your conclusion automatically is going to be wrong. So the only way you can win this debate is if you change the premise. And to change the premise, you got to know your information to put it back on them, to get them onto the back foot, right? So everyone clear? And has anybody found the verse in the Bible where it says that the God of the Old Testament is a peaceful God?
Malachi 3:6.
What does it say?
Says, for I, the Lord, do not change.
That does not exactly. That does not mean that God is a God of peace there. He's not saying that. David was at war. He would go to war with 20,000 men. To do what? To smile at the people. He went in there to kill people. So
even if you look at, even if you look at Hebrews 13, verse 8, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever.
Yeah, even you've just come out of actually the degree class. We're doing maturity module. We're doing sexual wholeness. The book of Revelation. What is he going to do to your children? What is he going to do to your children with sexual sin? He's going to kill babies. That's in the New Testament. So at which point is the church teaching a false doctrine that our God is not going to kill anyone?
No, I think we didn't say not kill anybody, but his wrath and his judgment that will come upon the unrighteous, that will come upon the pagan, and the promise that he made towards his people. And we find that, when he said to his people, he will take them to the promised land, and he took them around, the wilderness. And we find that, they had to face so many obstacles, and in order for them to make it through, they would have to, go forth and conquer and kill and destroy anything that stands in their way for getting to the promised land. Even when we look at Joshua and the Battle of Jericho, for instance, it was a hard city. It was a pagan city that was so fortified that they couldn't penetrate it. But God said, no, you can take it because I promised it to you. And therefore, when they went, when they marched around, God had given them, a spirit of war to actually break down those walls and go in and conquer and destroy. And I think that's one of the things where, when we look at God, he will do anything for his children, and to bring them to that promised land. Anything that opposes him, anything that opposes his plan, anything that opposes his people, he had granted them permission, to destroy, conquer, and take over what rightfully belongs to them.
And the Muslim person will tell you exactly the same thing.
Sorry, what did you say?
And a Muslim person will tell you exactly the same thing.
But also, like, if you looked at the Canaanites, I mean, if you look at what kind of people, they became very, very wicked people. They became immoral. They became brutal, aggressive. They were doing all the things that would take you away from God.
But listen, you are talking to a Muslim person. They don't give a damn about where your people are gone and whatnot. Their God told them to come in and kill you. And you mustn't attack them based on that, because your God told you to do the same thing. That's the argument that we're having here. Because page 18.4, is Islam a religion of peace? And then he says, distinguish between Islam and Muslims. And then he talks about the Muslims that were killing, right? So the argument here is, you are saying that Islam is a violent religion, that Islam is not a religion of peace. But I can show you in your Bible that Christianity and Judaism is a very violent religion, and your God is a violent God. That's the argument that they're making here. So, self-study. Some Muslims will argue that Christianity is violent and Jesus promoted it. They cite Luke 2238, and several others. How would you answer this charge? I think next week after the exam, we'll have a debate, right? And the debate will be on question 3 and the self-study. We'll have two people that's representing the Muslims, and we'll have two people that's representing the Christians. Let's pick a team. How are we going to do it? Who wants to go on which team? Come on. Choose a team.
I'll go for the Christians.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then I guess my only choice is to go for the Muslims.
Okay. Then I'll join Rajesh with the. I'll join Rajesh with the Muslims.
And don't forget Pastor Charles, which side he can't go on the middle.
No. We'll phone him and let him know. We'll put him on one team, and then Pastor Devin can go on another team. Pastor Devin, which team you want to go on?
I'll go Rajesh.
No, thank Pastor. I'm going to back up there.
Okay. So Rajesh?
I'll go at Rajesh's side.
Okay. So Rajesh, Pastor Devin, and myself is on the Muslim side. Pastor Donovan, Pauline, and Pastor Charles is on the Christian side. Next week, we're going to do a debate, right? And we're going to debate exactly this topic here. And I think it would be really nice because we would be able to have our arguments for the Christian apologist and then a Muslim polemic, right? And it would be really nice to see what they would come up with, how they're going to attack us, because this is part of doing warfare. When you did apologetics, we discussed how Paul would do the breaking of strongholds in his debates. And the stronghold of the mind is the most powerful stronghold to break. So let's do this debate next week. So next week, we're not going to watch any lectures. We're going to be preparing for the debate, and you're going to be studying, right? So those are the two things that we're going to do on Tuesday next week. And we will go through this exact question here, because this is an easy way to attack us, to attack a Christian. I mean, if you don't know the Old Testament, if you don't know certain things, these guys are going to come in there, and it's even worse when they have a friend. Everyone's going to get emotional, and there's going to be a fight that's going to break out, and we don't want that. We want to be able to defend our faith, and defend it with words, defend it without becoming emotional, defending it with good knowledge and good reason, to be able to say certain things. So everyone good with next week's class?
Amen.
Okay, cool. Right, we're gonna have to have a strong apologetics team in Disciple School of Ministry, especially for understanding Islam, and then also for our apologetics module, because the church we need to be able to defend the faith. I was talking to the pastor yesterday, and he says Christians don't know how to defend their faith. You ask a Christian why they believe they're a Christian, they don't know. And I think this is such a good exercise for us to learn how to defend the faith. Let's get ready to defend the faith, because that's one of the weaknesses that we have as a church. So next week is debating time. Let's get our arguments right. Let's know our content well, and let's put up a good show. Okay, everyone happy?
Yep.
And no getting emotional, and no getting offended. The rules of the debate. Okay, everybody good? Rajesh, you good?
Yeah.
As long as you told us that we'll come in there knowing.
Yeah, and no attacking personal character. Only stick to the facts. Or in our case, the supposed facts.
So to make it clear, the debate is on 3 and and self-study.
Yeah. Let's just go quickly to the question there. We'll clarify the question.
Christianity is violent, even Jesus promoted it.
So the topic's going to be Islam is claimed to be a violent religion, but it's not more violent than what Christianity is. It's not more violent than Christianity.
Christianity or the Old Testament?
Well, the Old Testament, we are Christians. The question is Old Testament. We actually believe in the Old and New Testaments, so it's the same thing. You got the topic? So Islam, it's claimed to be a violent religion, but it's not more violent than Christianity. Right. Okay, so I think that should be interesting. Right. Any questions? And the debate, I think it must be maybe 30 minutes. I think 30 minutes is enough time for each person. Each one gets 5, and then you get your closing arguments. You get another 5 minutes there. So it shouldn't go more than 40 minutes. Right. Is everyone good?
I said, any words that we should not use?
As long as it's English and Arabic, we're fine.